I think, in principle, anybody can do science. I don't think that simply collecting shells or planting flowers is by itself necessarily science. But the process of science, of making observations toward an understanding of some phenomenon, testing some idea, is something that we can all participate in. It's important also to recognize that the process of collecting the data to answer a particular question is often a very long one, and it may be that numerous people need to be involved in order to do it. Probably everyone knows that scientists often work in teams to solve some problems, not just because it's fun to do, but because, number one, there are often several kinds of expertise needed, but also because some problems are so big that it requires many people to be involved simply to collect enough data to answer the question. Because of this, there are many opportunities for anybody to become involved in some piece of a bigger scientific project. What that means is that if somebody's interested in science, interested in nature, they don't have to do everything from A to Z in order to say they're doing science or to be involved in science. There are lots of ongoing scientific projects that require people to make observations where there aren't enough scientists to go out and do it. And in fact, that's something that we've been doing for a number of years here at the Museum of the Earth. We are working with a group in the Department of Education at Cornell to have students help collect data on fossils from a time period known as the Devonian in order to answer some questions that require very large sample sizes, far more than most paleontologists have the time to collect. I have this mastodon behind me. We collected literally tons of sediment from around those bones that contain small fossils that give us information about the environment when that mastodon was alive. There's no way that we have the personnel to look through all of that sediment. We've had students helping us to do that for years. And there are lots of other projects like this. The Lab of Ornithology at Cornell is world-renowned for involving the public in collecting bird data. There are a number of places that collect climate data of various kinds. We're involved with a group called the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network that involves the public in collecting precipitation data, rainfall and snow data, because it turns out there simply aren't enough weather stations out there to provide enough data for the kind of resolution that's needed to understand certain kinds of meteorological processes and to use in certain kinds of models. So I encourage people to be involved in science, and we would love it if more students could be involved in science before they get to college. One of the primary reasons that more people don't go into science is because they don't see it as something that people do. They see it as a subject matter, as a certain amount of content that they have to memorize, or in some cases maybe difficult problems that they have to solve, but they see it as something that's been done by somebody else and not something a process that they would be engaged in. And that has to do in part with, or in large part with, the way science is taught in schools. no fault of individual teachers, but most teachers don't have a chance to be involved in science themselves before they become teachers. So many teachers don't teach science in the way that science is actually done. And there's a big national effort among people who do research in science education to try to change that. But it's very difficult to change a system that's driven by tests, which tend to focus on memorization of content. But certainly there are lots of science educators that are aware that this is a direction that we should be moving in the direction of involving students and their teachers in doing science as a way to help them understand, number one, what it is, and number two, that it's really fun and that it's really interesting, and also to understand, again, that there isn't just one kind of person that does science. It's not just highly analytical, mathematically minded white males in white lab coats, that it's a whole plethora of different kinds of people who are interested in the topic. Some of them are out in nature, some of them are in labs, some of them, and some of them are involved in science, not just in solving the scientific problems, but in, for example, communicating the science in museums or in art or in writing, or these days on the internet, or or developing things for other kinds of media. So there's a whole range of interesting things that you can do in science, and have and engage your own personal intrinsic interests. Each of us has to treat the Earth in a way that's sustainable for others living around us and future generations. And so we all use Earth resources, and but we can easily use so many resources, or take those resources in a way that makes future use of those resources impossible for other people. And of course we all know examples of that all over the world, where perhaps mining has been done irresponsibly, or where we've polluted someplace, so we now have enough knowledge about the Earth and how these things work that we can actually make some predictions about, if we use the Earth a certain way, then we can expect a certain kind of end result. So it's part of Earth literacy is to understand that we as individuals and as communities have an impact upon the Earth, and that we need to take care that that impact isn't so great that it can't be used and enjoyed by future generations of people and the biota that we share the Earth with.